There has been no war that we have not fought and died on the front lines of. There has been no job we haven't done. There's no tax they haven't levied against us, and we've paid all of them. But freedom is somehow always conditional here. You're free, they keep telling us. But she would have been alive if she hadn't acted so free. Now, freedom is always coming in the hereafter. But you know what, though? The hereafter is a hustle. We want it now. And let's get a couple things straight. Just a little side note. The burden of the brutalized is not to comfort the bystander. That's not our job. All right, stop with all that. If you have a critique for the resistance, for our resistance, then you better have an established record of critique of our oppression. If you have no interest in equal rights for black people, then do not make suggestions to those who do. Sit down. We've been floating this country on credit for centuries, yo. And we're done watching and waiting while this invention called whiteness uses and abuses us, burying black people out of sight and out of mind while extracting our culture, our dollars, our entertainment like oil, black gold, ghettoizing and demeaning our creations, then stealing them, gentrifying our genius, and then trying us on like costumes before discarding our bodies like rinds of strange fruit. The thing is that just because we're magic doesn't mean we're not real.
Hey, you guys.
Hey.
What's poppin'?
So
can I just say, I love that he's just so professional and just like, good morning. And I'm like, yo, what's poppin'? I love it.
Because you're from the hood.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Like the hood.
No, really.
Newcastle? I don't know what. Wilmington.
Browntown.
Delaware? This is Delaware still?
Yeah.
Okay. You know how I feel about Delaware's.
I used to say the same thing until I visited Wilmington. So
the truck stop state.
Yeah.
Yeah, for all you guys that are regular listeners and you hear me refer to the person that refers to Delaware as a rest stop on 95, that is the person there. So I guess I'll start, and we were talking in pre-production. There's so much to unpack about this topic that you can start anywhere. This could almost be a mini series or its own podcast, but I thought as us having a platform, I thought it was responsible of us to speak about it and to speak on it and to not ignore it. And kind of when you have a podcast that you do weekly, it gets difficult to try and stay positive and kind of, we tried to ignore coronavirus for a while, and then it just went on for like 6 years. And
yeah.
So I am here in concert with these wonderful people today to address the issue and use our platform responsibly. So, weird intro, a little different, but I'll start by introing the episode. Welcome to episode number 90, the third attempt. You'll understand that next week when you watch episode 91, but we had done episode 90. If you're regular, you know there was no episode last week because Skype screwed the audio up, and we re-recorded that episode, but we felt it was important to address this issue before we posted that episode. So that'll be next week. Anyway, welcome. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're listening. I am Ramon.
I'm Danielle.
I'm Ashlyn.
I'm DC.
So DC is our special guest. He is, this is your second time on the show, right?
Yes, it is.
Second time on the show. Friend of the room, friend of the show, also my brother. In life, and just kind of my real brother. I don't even have to go into explaining that. My real brother. I respect Dave's opinion a lot, and I thought he could weigh in on this. It's interesting because we're both from Jersey. You're now in Cali, so you must have an interesting, it's different lens being there versus the lens we have versus what we would think it would be like home. And I don't know where Ashlyn is. She's further below the Mason-Dixon line, though.
I am about an hour away from Tennessee and an hour away from Kentucky, so down in the country.
Okay, so significantly different cultures and et cetera.
Very different. Yes.
I will say this: my transparency is that the whole thing has made me. I narrowed it down to 3 emotions. Angry. I probably have been angrier for more than one reason that I'll dive into as we unpack everything. Scared. I'm scared for myself, like always when as a black man, when you get pulled over, I'm not just worried about the 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour over the speed limit I was going or the stop sign I was missed, but I genuinely do wonder what I'm going to occur. And thus far in life, I've never had a terrible experience, but I know several people who have had really bad experiences. One Dave and I had to listen to on the phone one night. We'll kind of dive into that later. I'm scared for my sons, my black sons, and their future children. And it's interesting knowing that my parents and my grandparents dealt with shit like this, and I'm still dealing with shit like this, and my children will deal with shit like this. It's frustrating. Is kind of my third emotion. So that's where I am, kind of with everything that's going on. And I'll stop talking and let somebody else talk for a second.
No, that's okay.
No, Ashley, go ahead.
I'm right there with you. Like I told you the other day, I am angry. I don't think I'm as angry as a lot of Black people. I don't think I have the right to be, because nothing's really happening to me per se, or so it's a little difficult in that aspect. But I am very angry with what's going on in the world, and that it's still happening, and the fact that it's 400 plus years later and we're still dealing with this, and people should have been this angry for a very long time.
I'm sure they have been.
Everybody should have.
Oh, yeah.
My thing is everybody should have been.
Okay.
Like they are now. Like all the 50 states, the multiple countries around the world, that should have been going on for a very long time, but it hasn't been. That's my problem. Because that's how you get things done. That's how change happens.
Yeah, no, I agree with Ashlyn there. It is something that should have been happening for a while, and everyone should be angry and upset of the travesties that's been going on in this country, just in modern times. As far as you mentioned, over 400 years of just ignoring the issues has boiled to this point, and I'm sure we'll jump into more about what might have caused it to happen this way. I do have a point of view that is relatable to our current, situation with COVID and quarantine, and then what I noticed this time around is it was very different. We've seen protests before, we've seen riots, and we've seen even looting before. And those are the 3 main situations that are going on right now. And I do separate them because I think there are 3 different groups of people with different feelings at how they are addressing their anger, as we mentioned. But there's just so many different people out there right now. I love seeing that every time, the camera's panning and showing protesters or even showing looters or even showing rioters, it was people of all different colors. So it showed that, there was so many people that really realized, like, what, something needs to happen. And there was a tipping point. And what happened this time around that made it so much more different than the other times when, a young Black man was killed by the police and they were unarmed? I think it really kind of, this quarantine has changed us a lot. It allowed us the opportunity to really, sit in our homes and digest a lot of information. And um, we were not distracted by, mundane things of the world, like, whether it's work or whether it's going out with friends or just living your life normally. And I think everyone was sitting at home ready to already pop because they were ready to get out of their house, get out of their homes from being there for 90 plus days. And seeing this was like, you know what, enough is enough. And I think everyone that did show up was like, you know what, we got to go out and we got to do something. And it just kind of just tipped everyone over. And I think that's why there were so many different groups of people that were standing with people of color that felt that this needs to be recognized. This needs to be changed. So, at first I did. It was confusing because I was like, well, why? Because I remember seeing so many white faces in the crowd, and I'm like, well, what is going on? Like, I'm not used to that, And it was, at first I was confused, and then I started to realize, like, you know what, this is how it should be, all lives matter when all of us are in it together. But until then, I know, we put it out there, that trigger word, that triggers.
I know it's funny because I got immediately enraged when you said it.
Yeah, it's like it can only matter when truly they all matter, right? And obviously, like we all know all lives matter, but when someone says Black Lives Matter, it's not because we only think Black Lives Matter. It's because, hey, we want Black lives to matter as well, as same as everyone else's does. So, when, we are just super angry as a whole. And I've experienced some of the weirdest conversations amongst my friends, or, I still am going to consider them friends because of the relationships that we've had. But, it's made me very distant, to some of them, because I'm like, I can't believe you don't understand my point of view. When I've endured your point of view for so long. Like, I'm just having you just to, be sympathetic at the cause and all of the bigger issues that has caused us to feel this way about, someone literally just dying in the street for no reason at all, regardless of their background, their history, or what they've done. It is not it's not the cop's responsibility to be, judge, jury, and executioner. We have due process. If that person was a criminal, you arrest them, you hand them over to the judicial system, and you let the courts take care of it. But even at that level, it's really just messed up as well. There's just so many levels where if this man didn't die and he did go and he was able to make it to jail, he probably would have been screwed over in the court system anyway. He probably would have been thrown in jail for whatever reason they felt that he resisted arrest. Where that's a whole nother story. How do you resist arrest? Without you need to be. You should be getting arrested for something, and then you resist. like, hey, I'm going to arrest you for what? For resisting arrest. What? Like, I can it just doesn't add up to me. I'm sorry, I don't want to take too much of the time right now, but I just kind of wanted to get some of the things that I feel that I'm going to be bringing points to during this conversation. Okay. But yeah, I just really think that overall, the reason why this is happening, the reason why we got to the boil point is because everyone is just tired. Okay. And I love that we're all doing it together.
I didn't actually think about that. And I've
Poor
been
Danny.
thinking to myself, I'm so sorry. I have a lot to say and I'm so sorry.
No,
but I'm going to be the loud one today. But I've been thinking about this, and I'm like, what was so different? What changed this time? What makes this time so different than all of the other times that we've seen Black men die on camera, or just we've watched them die in the streets? What's been so different? And you make a great point. The quarantine, like, a lot of people are at home and they actually have to sit with this. They have to sit with this emotion. They had, they watched it, and now, like, you have those feelings. You can't escape those now.
Yeah,
That's in you.
exactly.
Now you have to do something. And thank you for that, because I've really been racking my brain and I just could not figure it out. And it was really driving me crazy.
No, it was racking my brain too. It's just it really just came to me recently, like, you know, like when I saw that every single state in America, even the, you know, even Alaska and Hawaii,
And Puerto Rico,
everywhere there was a protest. There was a protest in solidarity to police brutality and to George Floyd and to Breonna Taylor, you know, and to the countless names and hashtags that we've, you know, we try so hard to remember each of them, but they're coming so fast that it's hard to name them all. But you know, as a human being, regardless of race, color, you are going to, like, you know what? Yeah, this is fucked up. You know, and, it's something needs to happen. So, but yeah, man, it's crazy times.
Hit it, Jack.
Okay. So I also have been feeling anger. I've also been feeling upset about everything that's happening. I've cried numerous times. I've watched a lot of protests that people who attend put on Facebook Live. And like there was one last weekend down at Legislative Hall in Delaware and Dover. That was very, very moving. I mean, it was like a 3-hour protest. I watched probably about 2.5 hours of it. To hear, at first, to see people coming together, all people of all races, of all walks of life coming together, is a beautiful thing to see. Also, to hear people of color getting up and talking about the struggles that they've endured, the racist things that have happened to them, that I simply just, I can't understand, because those things have never happened to me. The conversations that the protesting has kind of brought about, uncomfortable conversations that are good to have. Okay, it's good to have uncomfortable conversations. And it sparked a lot of conversations between coworkers, between family, between friends, and it's really opened my eyes, and it's opened up a lot of other people's eyes too. 4 years, I think it was 4 years ago when Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the song, whatever.
The anthem.
Yeah, that. And I'm not gonna lie, I took that very personally. I took a lot of offense to it, because my family is a military family. My family, my uncles, my grandparents, military family, and I took a lot of offense to him kneeling during the national anthem, because I was focused on the how he was protesting and not the why. And I didn't get it. And I feel like if I had taken the time and people like me had taken the time to understand the why rather than focusing on the how, maybe we would have made a lot more progress in the last 4 years than we have.
Yeah.
I meant to start by saying this in the beginning. I meant to start by saying not all cops are bad.
Right.
Matter of fact, the bad ones are probably a small percentage. But I do relate to, so I want to start by saying that, but I do relate to something Chris Rock said in the stand-up once, where he said, there's certain professions where there shouldn't be any bad apples. Like, imagine if you got on your plane and you had to worry, is this one of the bad pilots? You know what I mean? I think it's unfortunate in any group where the few bad people outshadow, and then a majority of people judge them on the few. So I want to say that I do believe there are tons of great law enforcement out there, that it sucks for them that unfortunately they're looked at as a whole based on a few fucked up people. I'm just going to say what it is on some fucked up people.
Doesn't that suck?
Hang on, let me finish my disclaimer.
Okay, sorry.
I won't take as long as DC, but
my bad.
And again, like all of us, it's so much that I've wanted. I've probably thought about what I was going to say on this episode more than any other episode we've ever done. But anyway, all protests aren't bad. And what I will say, while I don't think being opportunistic and destroying or looting because hey, it's protest going on, might as well get me some free shit. But sometimes when you got to get shit done and you're angry and you're backed into a corner. I'm not saying it's right, but I get it because like Colin Kaepernick tried to protest peacefully and people had a problem with it and nothing got done. And, this man's career suffered as a result of it. And say whatever you want to say about it. There's been dozens of other type of silent protests like that. And if you want to talk about riots, and looting, the Boston Tea Party was rioting and looting because the people were just tired of England's tyranny so much. So try, and again, it's hard to understand something when you haven't lived through it, right? I imagine you guys don't fear for your life when you get pulled over because you were speeding. And so to live in that lens and then like Danielle understand how much you love Paige and then to worry about yourself and then worry about your child like that it's just all scary. So I think take everything with a grain of salt and be kind of compassionate to what people are going through, especially when you can understand it. Because I've said in some of the instances, if somebody was threatening my life, I don't know that I might not shoot them and how many times I would shoot them either. But a lot of these instances are not that. There is no gray area.
I want to say that I've, always understood like, yes, racist people exist. No one I know is racist, you know what I mean? But being able to listen to people talk about, my friends and stuff talk about, that they, when they get dressed to go out, running, they don't run at night because they don't want to be seen as aggressive. They, take time to think about the clothes that they're putting on. So as if they were to be seen by a cop or, someone else, that they don't look like they're aggressive. I've never thought to myself when I get dressed in the morning, oh, does this shirt make me look less aggressive? I've never thought when I'm getting pulled over, oh, well, I'm just reaching for my insurance card. Are they going to see that as something else? Those thoughts have literally they've never crossed my mind. And I didn't get it because I never understood white privilege. And I'm not ashamed to admit that I didn't understand it. And I'm proud to admit now, after taking the time and really listening to people talk, that I can see it I can see my white privilege a whole lot more. I always used to get irritated when people would say, not that people would say Black Lives Matter, but I would respond with, well, of course they matter. All lives matter. But I see it now in a way that I didn't see it before. And that, yes, we're not saying that all lives don't matter, but the lives right now that are, in danger, they're not all lives. Right now, they're Black lives. And so until Black lives matter, all lives can't matter. And I didn't get it. I didn't get it before. So all of this protesting and people standing in streets and, making their voices heard, it's working. It worked on me.
Yeah. It's funny. I was going to read this meme that's been floating around, just not for you guys, but just for other people who may be listening and need to be educated. And it says, we said Black Lives Matter. We never said only Black Lives Matter. We know all lives matter. We just need your help with Black Lives Matter for Black lives that are in danger. I'd like to shout out the people that are giving like contributions to help some causes. I love the support from some of these big companies. I think Ben and Jerry's wins the fuck racist award by far in their response. But like, imagine going to work as a Black man or woman, and you don't know how your company feels about the issue, and more than likely you're going to that job because you need the income from that job. And you're in that situation 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, whatever the number is. So I think it's cool for the people that work for some of these industries that have come out and, spoken their voice. every time I turn on the Amazon Fire, Amazon says Black Lives Matter right on there. And whether they're jumping on the bandwagon, whatever, it's nice to know that, you know, Amazon it appreciates my $14.99 or whatever the hell it is a month for that. But I feel for the people who have to go to work every day, and I don't know. I don't know what they think. Why haven't they said it? You know, why? And like, why haven't you said anything?
People, you know, people haven't been speaking out, and, you know, silence says a lot more, I think, than anything else. And, you know, I live in Smyrna, which is a very small town in Delaware, and there is a medical building where an ER is and where a couple of medical offices are. And a couple of days ago, probably, I think maybe 3 or 4 days ago, 4 nurses on their lunch break that they get from 12 to 1 went out on the corner of the street and held up signs. I mean, and they were, I think it was 2 white women and maybe 2 black women. I'm not entirely sure. But they held up signs on their lunch break the entire time from 12 to 1. They stood outside. They didn't get in the streets. They didn't do anything. They stood on the side. They, you know, they were protesting, as is their right, as is anyone's right. And I'm also part of like a page for the community. It's called the Smyrna Clayton page. And I was disgusted by how many people hopped on that post telling them that they were disrupting traffic and that they, you know, they're nurses and they shouldn't be outside while they're, you know, at work, blah, 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 blah. Absolutely disgusted by the comments. I've gotten into a few arguments because I'm so bothered by it, and it's not even affecting me, but I'm bothered by how people are perceiving these women who are standing outside sharing their disgust with the world with everyone who drives by, right? So when I tell you the next day, 30 people joined them on the side of the road, and that is so touching to see. It really is. And that's the kind of stuff that moves me even more, you know. So they were alone. It was just the 4 of them. And then the next day there were 30 people are donating water and donating snacks and joining them, and people and kids and kneeling and standing. And what a beautiful sight.
What I will tell you is that I've worked really hard. I think the first couple of days I was on Facebook, and then I would scroll down to the comments. And this is probably, it's funny, we talked about growth and forgiveness 2 weeks in a row now. But this is the time I'm probably the most angriest and the most bitter. And I don't know if it's an accumulation of all the incidents. There's a period where this was kind of a big issue in the country before, and it tore the family that I was a part of. Like, what's been really upsetting is when you learn, like, the word "but" has been really telling in a lot of people's responses to shit. And you start learning how people you genuinely respect or even admire to a degree, like personal people, like, you learn how fucked up they're thinking. Like, I can't even tiptoe around a fucking issue. And I'm actually getting upset. My eyes are welling up. But like, I've been staying off of it because, you know what? Yes, I'm thankful to kind of understand now who I'm dealing with in these situations, but it's hurtful too. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like on top of everything else, I'm losing another person that I thought was an ally. I thought that somebody that was on my side and kind of stood for, because whatever you want to call it, there's no sides to this. It's humanity versus races, and there's no fucking gray area, in my opinion. It's what's right. So I believed you were this person who believed in what was right and had integrity, and now I've found out you've been exposed that you don't. You're not this great superhero that I've laid you out to be. And I look at my friends and family in some instances as people that are superheroes. So to learn that is frustrating as fuck. And then I will say, because I'm sure, Dave, you want to add to that, because we kind of talked a little bit about that yesterday. But I remember a period being naive. I remember my uncle when I was younger, and he would tell me stories about, you don't want to behave this way, or you want to do this because you don't want to be perceived in X way or Y, Z way, whatever, by white people. And I would look at him like, dude, that was the 60s. It's the 90s now. That's not a big issue. And then I was in high school, and the Rodney King was kind of the first one that was taped. And when they got acquitted, they did riot in Newark. That was like my junior year of high school, so like 92, I think it was. And then just as you get older as a black person, stuff starts fucking happening. Like,
no, I just wanted to say, I wanted to see
I
how
told the
Ramon
story
was
where I
going to
was
plug that story
hanging out with a
into
friend of
this
mine. She's a white
episode.
girl, Amy.
Well, job well done.
And she got into a fight in the bar, and the girls yelling at her, and she was like, she was calling her like, "You're a slut, you're a hoe, and you're a bitch, and you're a fucking nigger lover." And my first reaction was like, wow, who the fuck she say that to? And so I looked around in the bar, and I'm the only brown person in the fucking bar. And like, and then little stuff just, it started escalating to where I was working in the hospital, and the patient was like, oh, she's like, my husband was a senator and he did a lot of things for colored people like you. Like, it kept happening and kept fucking happening. And yeah, so it's something that I've grown up with it. I'm just tired. I'm tired of tiptoeing it around it. I hate the fucking comment when people say, well, I don't see color. That's just as fucking racist as, because we're all different. We all have unique culture. Like, I don't understand why this country loves our fucking culture so much and profits off our fucking culture so much, but doesn't want to have shit to do with us. Not everybody, some of them. Sorry. That wasn't supposed to be a rant.
No, that's okay. The I don't see color thing really fucks me up. You can clearly see it. And you saying that you don't see color, you are ignoring everything that Black people have been through. You don't see it. Why? That doesn't make any sense. You don't want to see it. You don't want to see what these people have been through. You want to close yourself off to that. You want to be naive or ignorant or whatever because you don't want to deal with that. No, that's not the way this works.
You know what I think it is? I narrowed it down to this. And like, if you listen to the plight of Jewish people and the Holocaust, and, you know, I remember hearing about it and talking about it in school. And then there were like 2 pages about the civil rights movement. But I think it was easier because, like, if Dave will tell you, Dave likes to tell new people all the time about the time where I've shit on myself, because it's easier to talk about when somebody else shit on themselves, right? But for most people, it's harder to acknowledge when you fucked up and when you shit on yourself. So it's easier for Dave to point out to me, like, yeah, that was wrong. You should have done something better. But it might be harder for him to sit and tell the same story. And I think that might be part of why some people don't want to, you don't want to, you choose to don't see it because you don't want to fucking acknowledge it.
And that's, God.
I actually used that talking to somebody else the other day, and I was like, I have to use that point again.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Why'd everybody get quiet?
So you were talking about the cops, and it's a shame that a few bad apples ruins the barrel, right? So now everybody's looking at cops, all cops, like, oh, you're all bad. Not everybody, but most people, they'll look at cops and be like, oh, fuck them. Like, this is fuck. No. What? And it's funny, not funny at all, but it's what they did to Black people.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's.
Oh, so, I'm sorry. I was putting the connection together. I
was like, what?
Yeah. No, it makes you think.
So you look at these cops and you're like, okay, well, I don't like all of them. Why? Because they're bad. No. These couple might have fucked up. Sure. I'm sure a few Black people have fucked up, just like everybody's fucked up. We're fucking human.
I've seen cops of all colors and gender are fucked up. And then there are some great cops. I have cops in my family. I have cops that are friends. I have cops that, actually surprisingly have a lot of my like graduating class have become police officers and people that I knew. There were some that I'm like, yeah, I could have seen you turn into a cop. And then there's others that I'm surprised of. And, my experiences with police officers have varied over the course of, my time. And just a little bit of extra background about me. I'm you know, my parents immigrated from Haiti in the 80s or 70s, whatever. I was born here. My father was a Haitian politician, and he worked at the consulate in New York. So, you know, like we grew up Haitian, like the culture, the whole nine. I speak the language. You know, I consider myself Haitian American, but growing up, you know, I've classified always as a Black American or African American because, you know, while I still have that Haitian culture, I also have the Black American culture that I grew up on, and no one can tell that, you know, my parents are from Haiti. Obviously, you know, regardless of where you are in the country, you're Black, regardless if you're African, Haitian, Jamaican, however you want to look at it. But
I was going to say I could tell, but go on.
You can tell. You can't. There's some things, but you just have to really know it. But
I'm sorry. Go on.
No, you're fine. So, my experiences with the police have varied, and you know, the reason why I brought up my culture was because, you know, my parents, you know, haven't had to experience what I experienced when it comes to, skin color. Now, there's a huge problem of colorism in Haiti, where, you know, depending on how dark skin or light skin you are, does put you in a specific class, which is something that, you know, they're working on their own. But they haven't had the experience of being, you know, subjugated by, you know, a white police officer based off of profiling, you know. And my mother's never had that conversation with me. She's never, like, those hard conversations that you see these Black parents having with their children at such a young age. Like, you know, if you get into an altercation with the police, if you're going somewhere, you know, make sure that you are respectful. Make sure that hands out of pockets. Don't put your hoodie on. Why are you wearing those colors? You know, there's so many different things as, you know, growing up Black, you know, really, as a child, you need to learn just so you can go outside because you don't want to offend anyone. But I was lucky enough that my mother instilled in me, you know, respect of authority, you know, regardless of who it is. Like, because she's Christian woman, believes honor thy mother and thy father and the whole nine. So she's just like, you know, she always instilled in us like respect authority. You know, if someone asks you a question, answer respectfully. You know, and you know, just don't talk back. So, but she meant that in, you know, talking to, you know, when you're talking to adults and, you know, someone that's, you know, that you should be respecting. Right. Exactly. And I always, you know, of course, and in my mind, I always looked at the police as that's the same way, just naturally. So when I would get pulled over, I was just automatically respectful, you know, and I just made sure that I, you know, it was a borderline fear though, like the way that because there's this whole thing in fear when it comes to like, you know, Christianity, like, you know, there's like love God but fear God, love your parents but fear your parents in a respectful way. So there was like always this underlying fear that I had when I was pulled over by the police, and I never really understood why. As I grew older, like Ramon, when he started seeing more and more of how, you know, we are treated as a race, and it starts to compound, and you're like this is kind of fucked up, whatever. And every altercation I've had with the police I've always been respectful, and each cop has treated the situation differently. Not to go into detail about why I had a warrant, but I did.
Hey, been there, done that. It's okay.
You know, but even for that situation, you can even, if you really dig into it, it could have been a form of racism that he might have had against me. Not the cop, the person that, you know, that.
Oh, I just remembered.
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah, you know, I mean, this is because I really never dug into it. I knew that he was racist, like it was obvious he was. This was an older boss. This was an older boss that, white man from southern New Jersey, which might as well be, you know, Mobile, Alabama. Oh, no offense to Mobile, Alabama, if anyone's from there. But no, seriously, it was like, long story short anyway. So we had a situation. He was my old boss. He actually said that I was harassing him, and he tried to take me to court for harassment, and it was ridiculous. I made a meme of him, and he didn't like it. That's essentially what happened.
Before there was such thing as a meme.
Yeah, but I made a meme of him, and he was a harasser. He took a picture of me without my consent, and this, that, and the other. And either way, I had to go to court, and it was ridiculous. I got it taken care of. It was dismissed, but he was so proactive of trying to just really fuck me over that he went back and filed it again. Like, he appealed it. He could have just let it go because he wasted my time already. I had to get a lawyer. Like, at that point, I was fired. It was all done with. He humiliated. It was hard for me to admit this, for a while, but he humiliated me, and he essentially won. I felt that he always won in that situation, even though nothing happened in court. But then he just felt, no, I need my time. And like this, that he was trying to make sure that he destroyed me for whatever reason. Anyway, I digress. So that's why I had the warrant. Because
I was just going to say real quick,
it.
It's kind of like the lady where they showed the video that happened, unfortunately, the same day as George Floyd's killing, where she was weaponizing the police against you because you're black. Yeah, and it's funny, I've never thought about it that way until kind of listening to you kind of play it back and even think about some of my interactions where the first time I met that particular person, he says, "Hey, you want to get something for lunch next door? There's a PetSmart." Like,
yeah, he said some borderline real racial stuff, and I've experienced a lot of racial stuff in the workplaces, and you kind of just let it go because it's like, because you think it's normal, I'm like, I used to think like altercations with the police officers, like having guns drawn on me or being in handcuffs. I thought everyone went through that. I thought it was just cops. All cops were just dicks to everyone. Like, and I wasn't aware where, and I'm most of my jobs, I'm always kind of like the token, so like the only person of color there. And when I get cool with them and I explain my situations and I tell them like, yeah, like you've never been pulled over before, never been pulled over before, let alone like you never had been in handcuffs, you never been thrown in back of a paddy wagon. Like, no, why would that happen? I'm not that type of person. I'm like, well, I'm not that type of person either. I've done nothing wrong. If you get to know me, I'm usually classified as this big sweet teddy bear and stuff like that. But it does happen, and like I said, the issue that I've realized with my altercations with the police has always never set well with me because I've realized I've really done nothing wrong. Like they've never, had a reason to interact the way they have with me. There's been aggressors that have been black. Like I said, the problem with the police is it's really the color blue. To tell you the truth, there's definitely been tons of whites as well. There's been Asians, there's Hispanics. It's just all around. But I guess the point I'm trying to get to here is that I've had police officers that have heard me out. So I had this one cop, a New Jersey State Trooper, really small guy. Like he literally had to be like, no lie, like maybe 4'8". State Trooper.
Oh shit.
I'm 6'4". I might be exaggerating a little bit, but he looked like he was borderline midget. And he came out of the police car, and then he license registration. I'm pulling you over for. I'm like, he was like, you were speeding. I'm like, all right, yeah, okay. I agree. and he ran my information. He comes back to the car and he goes, he's like, hey, I have a warrant out, for your arrest. I was like, a warrant? He's like, yeah, there's. And then he said, I don't know what it's for, but you have a bail set for like $50,000. $50,000. Like, what the hell did I do? Like, what is going on? And then, and he took and like I said, he handcuffed me. He put me back of the squad car, And I was pleading with him. I was like, officer, listen, this is a big misunderstanding. You know, the only thing that I could think of was a situation that I had with his boss that, that was, that was settled. You know, everything was handled. There's no reason for it, to still, and that might be a mistake. They might have never taken it out of the system. So he asked me questions, which county or which court this was filed in, and that. So he took some time to get on the cell phone. He's calling his contacts. Comes to find out that when he called and reached out there, to where it was issued. Now this is where God's plan comes into play. They essentially realized that it was there was no warrant. Like, we can't find anything in the system, and the police officer could have still just took me in, but he took the time to do that, and he actually, he's like, you know what? In our system, it shows that you have a warrant. They're saying they can't find anything in our system. So I am going to release you, but you need to go get this taken care of immediately. If another cop pulls you over, they may not be as, basically saying as nice as I am right now. And that's probably the only time I've actually had a really good experience with the police. And this guy could have been completely terrified of me. 6'4", like I'm huge. I'm towering over this guy.
I was wondering how he cuffed you and then put you in the back of I was like, you fit in the back of a squad car?
I barely.
I was just picturing, when he walks up to your car and he has to look up to you.
Yeah.
While he's still seated in the car.
Right.
So I tell this story because I'm really angry at the police. I do think that the silence that police have amongst each other when they see, injustice happening to people, like the cops that stood around and let, this cop, kill George Floyd. They saw what we saw, they stood silent because it's like, you can't go against your brotherhood. You can't go against the blue line,
and that's not their job.
Yeah,
their job is to protect the community.
Exactly.
And that's not what you're doing, bud.
Yep. Against themselves as well,
Yes.
And there's an oath. They take a little oath of what their responsibility is.
Mm-hmm.
So my experiences with the police have varied, and I wanted to share again that specific situation because it could have gone totally different. This guy could have took me in. It could have been a different cop, and he could have took my pleas for help as aggression.
Mm-hmm.
And I always was just, I thought about that moment a lot because, like I said, being handcuffed and thrown in the back of a car, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And the entire time I was afraid. I was thinking about all the other situations that happened with altercations with police, and all of that was traumatizing. And I remember telling myself that was the last time that I ever want to be involved in an altercation with police. And I've done everything in my power to avoid it.
Right.
But
I was going to say it is weird because people don't understand where I've said in the past, like, well, I don't want to go there, any particular place at this particular time because I don't know what might happen if I'm there at night and I get pulled over, or like I forget who was watching me one time trying to place my registration and my insurance card like in a place where it didn't have to be in my glove compartment, or like just put it in the glove compartment. I'm like, fuck no, it's not going to the glove compartment.
No.
And like it has to be someplace that is super visible. And I will say, like, I try when I've gotten pulled over, I try and understand this is a person doing his job, and my hope is that they're I think one guy had even said, I'm just watching out for your safety, so you want to slow down. I was like, damn, I feel good about that. But you just never know what's going to happen when you come to the car. Like, I pull my car over, stop, turn the car off, put the key on the dashboard so you can physically see I'm not a threat. I'm not speeding off. I'm not going anywhere. And like you said, I'm respectful. Like, I've seen videos of people like cursing the cops out when they come up to the car. And I couldn't imagine. Like, that thought would never come to my mind that that's okay.
I've seen white people do that. Let's be very clear. I've seen some real crazy stuff with, how, and the thing is, they're right to do so. Like, I pay your fucking salary. I pay taxes in this town, and you work for me, stuff like that. You know, and Black people are more like, you know, like always, it's always a plea for like, what's disrespectful is usually like, yo, I didn't do anything wrong. Why are you bothering me? Please don't. Like, it's always a plea, but it's like, oh, why are you, you know, fighting with the police? Why are you resisting? It's because they're handcuffing me for no reason. Like I don't know if you guys ever been put in handcuffs before. It really, like, just imagine.
Those don't count.
Not furry ones.
But if you ever been put in like in handcuffs, it really, you know, it takes something away from you in that moment. Like you feel stuck. You now imagine just not being able to just like you want to just be able to stretch your arms out, but you can't. You know, and I start hyperventilating. You start getting hot and bothered, and it's always. And I'm not good in small spaces, so I was back in that police car. Yeah, I felt trapped. I'm like, yo, like not knowing what's going to happen. So it's just the fact that, you know, when I see my brothers, you know, resist, it's because like I feel like I would want to as well, you know, and it takes a lot in me not to do that because I want to make it home. Because in my mind, I always know, like, if I'm in a situation with a police officer, my life is in danger, which is ridiculous to think of. Your life should be in danger with criminals. With
as a person who's not a criminal.
Yeah, as a person that's not a criminal, but I feel like my life is literally in danger every time I have an altercation with a police officer. And it's when it's over, it's like a fresh breath air. And then you start realizing, like, yo, I really kind of, you know, you feel like you evaded death. You feel like you just came back from war. And it's ridiculous for a group of people to feel that way all the time, regardless if you are a gangbanger or if you are a retail sales manager at a fucking AT&T store. It's just like, you know, it doesn't matter what you do or who you are. We all always feel the same. And that's something that, to circle back to what Ramon was saying earlier, it's because, you know, why do some people cannot sympathize with how we feel about the situation with George Floyd? It's because they have the privilege of never going through a situation with a police officer where
absolutely. I sit here and I'm listening to, you talk about that happening. That literally has never happened to me. Like, no one's ever pointed a gun at me. I've never been handcuffed. I've never, when I get stopped by the police, they simply just ask me for my license and my registration. I've never thought when I'm reaching into my glove compartment how that could be perceived as anything other than me doing what they asked me to. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's just simply a matter of me I'm never going to be able to understand how that feels because it has never and probably will never happen to me because of my white privilege. And that makes me feel awful for having it. You know what I mean? I feel bad for having white privilege because I don't want anyone else to feel the way that you guys are feeling.
But you can use it.
Right. And and that's the thing.
Weapon, yeah.
To stand up beside your fellow man or woman and stand up for them and to be there for them and, to check in and see how people are doing, for one. I think that's really important too, to ask how people are doing and feeling. I think that's really important too. And I want to do my best to be there for everyone, all my friends, especially my friends that are people of color. I was sitting here thinking, I was talking with a coworker yesterday, someone who comes to my office every other Friday. And I asked her, how are you feeling with everything going on? And we were talking, and we were talking about, attending protests and stuff like that. And I haven't attended any of the protests. I've been there, I've watched them. Yesterday, my place of employment sent out an email saying that at 1:00, all employees that work for Christiana Care are welcome and invited to go outside and stand or kneel for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
That's shout out to them. That's so fucking dope.
It was very sombering. So I went outside at 1 o'clock with people that I don't know, because it's just me and the other girl in my office with people that I don't know. And it was 8 minutes and 46 seconds of silence, and it is a long time. I don't know if anyone's done
Yes.
standing still and not talking for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That's a long time.
Mhm.
I wasn't on the ground. No one had a knee to my neck. Okay. At the end of that 8 minutes and 46 seconds, I walked back into my office, and at the end of the day, I went home to my family. George Floyd didn't get to do that because he was murdered. So it's very, very sombering and eye-opening to kind of witness that silence amongst all other people who were standing up and want to be there for their fellow man. I've heard in the past people say, that's a scary time to kind of have kids, and you don't want to raise your children in this type of a setting because you never know what's going to happen and all that kind of stuff. But what if, rather than being afraid to raise our kids in this world, what if we raise our kids to change the world, right?
I've heard people say that the only way you're going to fix this is to, not that you could, but you would almost get rid of everybody from a particular generation back and just kind of start over. Right? That's what they did in Planet of the Apes, the original.
Kind of like what COVID's doing.
Yeah, honestly.
COVID's taking out the old people.
So,
they gotta go.
Ashley, no. But yes, no, it's.
Don't worry, Ashlyn is a habitual line stepper.
Ashley, I've thought about it. I thought about that, but I think that
it's also taking 34% of Black people out too.
It is.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was talking with my friend Kelsey the other day, and she was living in San Francisco for school, and right now she's in. Yes, she was. Right now she's in Orange County, Florida, with her boyfriend. And so I called her to see how she was doing, and they're both Black, and she's one of my best friends in the whole fucking world. I called her and I was like, "How are you?" She just fucking broke down, and obviously I cried too, because that's just what I do. I'm like, "You're crying, I'm crying. Okay, cool." Mm-hmm. So eventually we got to talking, and I talked to her a little bit about epigenetics and inherited traumas that are passed down. And we talked about COVID and blood types. Do you guys know what blood types you have?
Oh, positive.
I do.
Me too.
I have a positive.
We can share kidneys. Organs.
Kidneys. I don't know my blood type. I always say I should.
So I think it's AB or B positive. They're more susceptible to getting COVID, and more Black people tend to have that blood type.
I didn't know that.
Also, why they're more susceptible to sickle cell anemia and other ailments. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we were.
And you've researched this, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure you did, but just had to ask.
Come on. Thank you.
These fact checkers on the internet, like, she don't know what she's saying.
It's funny because our listeners are probably like, "Damn, he hasn't mentioned that damn book in epigenetics in weeks," and here comes Ashley right back to
Ashley's back. Here it is. God damn it.
I guess kind of sum it up, because we could tell a story. Like, as Dave was talking, I forgot about an encounter I had with the Denver Police Department, where they made me empty my glove compartment because I had chargers and shit in the car from working at AT&T, and I was leaving work. And some of them, I guess, I've blocked out because I just did not want to remember that trauma.
Yeah.
But I think it's important we talk about our leader, right? I will not say any one person is great, is all good, or all bad. I will acknowledge a person for what they've contributed, and I will say the Trump administration that previous to this contributed to a great economy and a lower unemployment rate, whether it was left over from Obama's presidency, whatever you want to say. If you have stocks, they were doing great. There were less people unemployed. And I kind of almost used to kind of use that to forgive some of the other things that this man has done. But I think at this point, there's no, and granted, I don't think any politician is a perfect human being, right? But this guy's fucked up.
Are we talking about 45?
Guy's an idiot.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know,
and we're definitely not getting that second 1200 now for sure.
Oh, hell no. They're like, oh, he's like, oh, you burnt down that $1,200. You know, that's my terrible impression. But
I don't need it. I don't give a fuck. Yeah. I mean, I do need it, but I don't fucking want it. I don't care. I don't want it.
I seriously, you know, was hoping we were getting to the point of talking about, you know, about this situation with MAGA and all this other stuff and why. And I want to know what attracted him to a certain group of people. And I, you know, there are, you know, and when we think about, you know, MAGA supporters, we assume like, you know, it's, poor or poor class white Americans, because that's where
not necessarily, but yeah.
No, I agree. That was what I thought, and then as time started going on, I'm like, yo, there's a lot of middle class white Americans that do support this man, and they believe in his ideology of in an extremely weird way. And then there's also people of color that do also support him too. I'm like, what are you now? At that point, I'm like, I'm mad. You know, like I think anyone can believe in, you know, I may not agree with you, and I might tell you like that's stupid, but I also do believe that you have the right to be stupid and you want to believe whatever you want to believe in, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So like I said, I had this, you know, I used to work with him, and we, and what's great about social media, it allows you to like meet up with people that you haven't seen or been with or hang out with for a while, and we have these little group, you know, DMs that we do with a specific group, and we all meme each other a bunch of stuff every day. So we stay in contact every day. But then it turned into this political group chat where, you know, it was super Trump supporter, conspiracy theorist, you know, he's Puerto Rican. And we always used to go back and forth with, you know, like a lot of different things. Like, I'm like, he's like, but he's for black people. He does reform, you know, black unemployment has gone down. I'm like, that's stuff that's kind of he inherited. And of course, you know, you do not applaud a fish for swimming. Yes, he's still the president. He still has to do things for the people. Whether, you know, because like I said, he has implemented some policies that are generally going to be good for us. But that's what he's supposed to do. That's not, like, I'm not supposed to applaud him for doing stuff like that. But what I do want to see is how he, you know, presents himself and how he talks about real issues and how he condemns, you know, alt-right America or, you know, Nazis or how he will, you know, recognize that there is real issues in America with, you know, black. He never does that. He does nothing presidential. And this guy would fight with me and like sending me these, like he would always send me these stupid videos of something going on, and I would always have to fact check him. So easily to fact check stuff. I become a professional fact checker with this guy. And I would always send it, before I respond to him, like, yo, here it is. And he always has to, like, you know, like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Or and then I see him in the comments of whatever you sent me. Oh, you should take this down. I found that this isn't true. Like, it's some fake news stuff. And it goes on and on and on. But now with the situation that's been going on with George Floyd and the riots and stuff like that, it got to a whole other level. I can't talk to the man no more. I cannot talk to the man no more. And the thing is, we have a lot in common outside of our political views. You know, we have a lot in common where, I could see me being, you know, really good friends with this person, you know, for a long time. But then now it's like, how do I remain friends with this person knowing that he literally does not give a shit about my life? That's how I take it. I think it's super personal. You know, and the other people in other groups, they're fed up, you know, and they are actually real best friends. Like, they grew up together, like in high school and stuff like that. That he introduced me to him and stuff like that. and we're all just trying to like not even convince him that he's wrong, but show him like you need to be more compassionate. You can believe in what you want to believe in, but at least understand our plight, understand our issues. And I realized that it snowballed into me going into other people's comments and like arguing with people, and I realized that people just don't get it, and it's very upsetting.
Or don't
how
want
they
to
follow this man, or they don't want to, and they follow this man, and it's killing me.
Like, I don't understand. I feel for the members of the military that are put in a position to have to fight against a citizen that you're protected. I think your dad posted something about like he would have trouble taking that order. To tweet to tweet if they're looting, shoot them. Like, no regard for human life. And then the comment yesterday, I think it'll be 2 days ago for you guys who are listening to this. But to say, I think, what is the exact comment that I think George would be proud that we're in a good place? What's the exact comment? I don't want to. We're talking about how unemployment's going back up, and George Floyd, who was shot dead, taken away from it. I mean, he's 46 years old.
He's looking down, smiling.
Yeah, that's
something.
What it was.
Yeah.
46 years old. Only 2 years older than me. Young. You know what I mean? It's fucked up. Like, and I used to be afraid, well, I don't want people who I respect who do like the guy to worry about what I think about. You can't hide behind the truth. Like I said I think I said during the election, like, you know, yeah, Hillary's a liar and Trump may be a racist and a bigot and a womanizer, but at least he's obvious. You know what he's telling you what he is. And I've never seen a president publicly try and divide the nation the way it has been. Like, I don't understand that. And I could go into a whole list of why you want to divide a people into, and a whole list of conspiracy theories, but it'll be like a 4-hour episode. But
I do feel there's like a bigger reason behind it. He's not just blindly doing this or anything like that. But just wanted to do a quick shout out to the mayor of DC, Muriel Bowser.
Yo,
the type of petty that I want to inspire to.
Yes.
Because the thing is, it leads right to that White House, but this is the path that Marine One flies over to the helipad. So he has to see the writing on the street as he flies over.
Yep.
So I want to be just like her when I grow up. And I just want to give a big shout out. If you don't know what we're talking about, Muriel Bowser, check it out. She named a plaza near the White House.
The street leading to the White House.
Yeah, the street leading to the White House, Black Lives Matter Plaza. And they wrote in really bright yellow brick words, Black Lives Matter, right on the street. It's amazing. Go take a look at it. Mm-hmm. And I'm very proud of that. But shout out to her.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have anything that we haven't kind of contributed already? Because like I said, I think we can keep going on, but I don't want to cut the conversation short just for the sake of time. But if anybody hasn't had a point that they've
I do.
Okay.
I've got one more thing.
Thank you, because I didn't know what I was saying.
I know, and I was trying to let you finish your thought, but then it didn't look like the thought was coming out, so I just figured I'd start.
No, it was stuck.
Another thing, so in Delaware, they've been doing a lot of protests. Like every day they've been doing protests in the street, and they do it at prime time. They do it at like 4:30, 5 o'clock when people are getting off work, and they are standing in the middle of the street and they're protesting. And I have seen so many people, because I watch it because I'm, proud that they're, making themselves heard and making their voices heard. And to see some of the comments these people are making online about, it's fine for them to protest, but protest on the side of the street. If people protest on the side of the street, you're going to drive right by them. You know what you are noticing when they're standing in the middle of the street? You're hearing them. You're seeing them.
Yeah.
So take the time, rather than saying, I've got to get home, I wish they wouldn't be there. Take the time to acknowledge why they're there. Listen to the words that they're saying instead of wanting to just drive right by them. Okay. Yes, it might be an inconvenience for you to be stopped in traffic, but it's more of an inconvenience when people are dying. Okay. It's more of an inconvenience that people have to stand in the middle of the street to bring awareness to the people that are being murdered, to the racism that's in the world. That's more important than you getting home in time for dinner.
Yeah.
That's all.
Fuck yeah.
Just so you could get home.
Right.
I will say, I guess, kind of a final thought. This has to be more than a moment. I think
Yes.
we've had brief moments before where it seems like it's going to change. I remember talking about how after Martin Luther King was killed and the riots that ensued, 2 days later, I think the number is, I apologize if my dates are wrong, but I think it was like 2 or 3 days later, they finally released the Civil Rights Act because I think people were up in arms. It's a shame that it took, 50 states and however many other countries in the world to bring about this and the change. And, we focused on the cops, but don't forget about the 3 guys that chased the guy. Oh God, I'm so fucking emotional right now that I can't think straight. But they weren't even currently a police officer. I mean, I know he was an ex-cop, but or George Zimmerman fucking walking around still, who shot Trayvon Martin, and he auctioned the gun that he shot him off with, and some sick fuck bought it. So I don't. It's again, like I think I started the episode with, it's more than just about black against white. It's humanity against racism. I applaud all the people who have made an effort to see the other thing. Like Danielle was very transparent about how she previously felt and what she's done and how she feels currently. And I applaud all those people because, like Dave and Ashley said at the beginning, as I'm looking at this stuff, I've never seen so many other races march side by side with us. And that's fucking awesome. What'd you guys learn today? I don't even, well, if we ever even
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. So I just need an opinion real quick. I don't necessarily want to argue with my grandfather. So my grandparents have raised my cousin. For those of you that don't know, my cousin is mixed. My grandparents, Trump supporters. My grandfather says racist shit sometimes. How do I get through to this man that this is not okay? He's like a 67-year-old man.
He's deep rooted. I'm gonna be honest with you. And just
I've been trying for years.
Yeah, we have been trying for years when we talk. Racist white people try to make them understand, so we understand your situation. There's, it's, racism does start from it is nurture. It is nurture. I don't care what anyone says. People are not born inherently racist or see color and all that other stuff. So it's instilled in him for 60-something years. This is his ideology. It would have to take an act of God, a real traumatic situation where it was revolved around race that affected him personally for him to get it. And that just doesn't happen in real life. So the only fight that you can do is letting him know that it's wrong. Continue letting him know how you feel. Don't stay silent. Let him know, make him uncomfortable for wanting to feel that way. At the very least, you can get him to stop saying it outright. But internally, he's always going to feel the way he feels. Don't get me wrong. There are people that can change.
And I was going to say, people can change, but it's only when you decide to make a change. And there are people who have decided, this is how I feel. I'm not right, and I'm not listening to anything else. And that's unfortunate for those type of people.
He's gotten better over the years. It's not completely gone away, but it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. But it's still there. And I love my pop-up to death. I really do. And he's a great guy. Aside from that, because it really fucking kills me.
And not to you or your grandfather specifically, but fuck the word but. There is no but. You're either racist or you're fucking not. Whether you say it 1 time a day or 3 times a week, there's no fucking but. That's been one of the words that has killed me the most through the. There was days where I just deleted the Facebook app off of my fucking phone because I did not want to be tempted to read the shit. I didn't care to see the shit. Just for my soul, I'm trying to deal with it because obviously I have to deal with white people, and I know that not all white people or cops are bad, and so I don't want to be bitter. I think one thing I forgot to mention earlier that I've seen post a lot too, that the world should be glad that I think as a race overall, we are very forgiving people and that we're just looking for equality and justice, not fucking revenge.
Not revenge.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. And then lucky
Yeah.
it's not revenge, and I kind of want to, leave you guys with this analogy that I actually watched yesterday. Some of you might have seen it on that I posted it up.
The Monopoly thing?
Yeah, the Monopoly thing.
Yes.
This young lady, did you get a chance to see it?
Yes.
I did. I was actually I wrote down. It's funny.
I reposted it to the Damaged Goods.
I watched
story.
it at lunch and I wrote it down because I was going to mention it.
Because it's like, if you haven't had a chance, go to Damaged Goods and take a look at that video. She explained it really well in terms that a child can understand it. And just quickly to acknowledge the what she mentioned was that think about playing Monopoly, and for 400 rounds you're playing against someone that has an advantage over you, and the way that you're actually having to provide them with the wealth off of your own sweat and tears, and they don't give you anything back. And then for another 50 years, she talks about how, during the civil rights movement, or 50 rounds, they essentially are, I don't want to mess it up.
I'm going to drop it here.
Yeah.
That economics was the reason that Black people were brought to this country. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. Do you understand that? That's what we came to do. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. Now, if I right now decided that I wanted to play Monopoly with you, and for 400 rounds of playing Monopoly, I didn't allow you to have any money, I didn't allow you to have anything on the board, I didn't allow for you to have anything. And then we played another 50 rounds of Monopoly, and everything that you gained and you earned while you were playing that round of Monopoly was taken from you. That was Tulsa, that was Rosewood. Those are places where we built Black economic wealth, where we were self-sufficient, where we owned our stores, where we owned our property, and they burned them to the ground. So that's 450 years. So for 400 rounds of Monopoly, you don't get to play at all. Not only do you not get to play, you have to play on the behalf of the person that you're playing against. You have to play and make money and earn wealth for them, and then you have to turn it over to them. So then for 50 years, you finally get a little bit and you're allowed to play. And every time that they don't like the way that you're playing, or that you're catching up, or that you're doing something to be self-sufficient, they burn your game. They burn your cards. They burn your Monopoly money. And then finally at the release and the onset of that, they allow you to play and they say, okay, now you catch up. Now at this point, the only way you're going to catch up in the game is if the person shares the wealth, correct? But what if every time you share the wealth, then there's psychological warfare against you to say, oh, you're an equal opportunity hire. So if I played 400 rounds of Monopoly with you and I had to play and give you every dime that I made, and then for 50 years, every time that I played, if you didn't like what I did, you got to burn it like they did in Tulsa and like they did in Rosewood, how can you win? How can you win? You can't win. The game is fixed. So when they say, why do you burn down the community? Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything. We don't own anything. Trevor Noah said it so beautifully last night. There's a social contract that we all have, that if you steal or if I steal, then the person who is the authority comes in and they fix the situation. But the person who fixes the situation is killing us. So the social contract is broken. And if the social contract is broken, why the fuck do I give a shit about burning the fucking Football Hall of Fame, about burning a fucking Target? You broke the contract when you killed us in the streets and didn't give a fuck. You broke the contract when for 400 years we played your game and built your wealth. You broke the contract when we built our wealth again on our own by our bootstraps in Tulsa and you dropped bombs on us. When we built it in Rosewood and you came in and you slaughtered us. You broke the contract, so fuck your Target. Fuck your Hall of Fame. As far as I'm concerned, they could burn this bitch to the ground. And it still wouldn't be enough. And they are lucky that what Black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
I would
Have your
leave my
grandfather
last
watch
little
it.
part on all this. I'd say is that I think we need to continue to support people of color. I think we need to continue to stand together, get more people to stand together, because what is going on right now is making an impact. It's making an impact. It's helping raise awareness, and it's 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 going to change the world.
I
You're
think
damn right it is.
I
It
think
is.
what's going to be different for me, I won't talk about what I learned today because none of this is new shit to me, unfortunately. But I think what's going to be different for me, I think in the past, I would tiptoe around an issue, right? Maybe if it's somebody that I consider a friend or, a boss or a coworker, I would tiptoe around the issue because, you're not supposed to talk about politics at work. Or I think the problem is when you're encouraging people not to talk about things, they never get to communicate and then work out differences and understand where each other's coming from. So I almost think that's a bad behavior to say what you should and shouldn't talk about. I'm not going to bite my tongue anymore. There was a period in life where I was with someone and their family disagreed and almost made me feel like I had to shut up to be accepted in that family. And so this is traumatic for me in that sense too, because in the beginning I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't say anything. Maybe I'm not supposed to say anything. Maybe I'm just supposed to feel this by myself and maybe, talk with my brothers. But no, I'm not. If you ask me how I feel about it, be prepared to hear truly and unapologetically how I feel about it.
Yes.
Amen. I feel you, man. Like, no more, staying silent on both sides. I appreciate you guys definitely opening up and, and really talking about this because it does make a difference. I think what's going to change for people like Ashton, like your grandfather, is hearing this from people that they can relate to. At some point, and while it may not affect your grandfather, if anyone in your family is listening or has been in any way skewed by your grandfather's point of views, you standing up to it will certainly help them understand that this isn't right, and they'll grow up, in good conscience and try to stop it as well. So keep doing that. And Danielle, thank you so much for just sharing, your experiences and how you've had a change of heart in certain situations. And I do appreciate that as well. And I just wanted to say I appreciate everyone. Period. Love you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
I love you guys too.
Yep. So, thanks, guys. Thank you for having me.
Any final thoughts before I have welcome back, Ashlyn?
Thank you.
We're glad to have you. I've missed you.
I've missed you.
If you'd like to learn more or interact with us or discuss, let me say this. On Ashlyn's behalf and Belle's behalf, who primarily manage these pages, nobody's going back and forth with you because I'm sure there will be comments, perhaps, maybe. Nobody's going back and forth with you. Your ignorant comments are ignored. Because if you like to have a real conversation, talk real. Don't be a fucking pussy and hide behind your fucking keyboard on your phone or your keyboard on your laptop.
Yes.
Expose yourself expose yourself to the person you fucking are, or just sit down and be open to change. I think a great example of that, if you go back to Joyner Lucas's "I'm Not a Racist" song,
I love that
follow
song.
the story of the song and how they both felt the way, and they had a conversation and they were able to resolve their differences and see each other. That's the only kind of conversation that should be being had. Sorry. Danielle, where can the good people leave those type of comments?
They can leave those type of comments on Instagram or Facebook at DAMAGD Goods, or on Twitter with Ramon at DAMAGD Goods #1. You can listen to us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, or iTunes. Also, we have a YouTube channel. When you type in Damaged Goods, and it gives you the option if you wanted to be at the one spelled properly. Don't click that one, click the other one.
You should record that one. That one's good.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Thank you guys so much. Not the easiest conversation to have, and I appreciate
it.
to have you guys as a council just to listen, just to talk things through a safe environment, to kind of talk things through where nobody was judged and everybody got to be heard out. And Danielle says often, like, communication is key. And I think, man, if people just sat down with the mindset to understand, and you may not agree, and that's fine, but at least sit down to understand why the other person thinks or feels the way they do. And stop saying fucking
Yes.
about it. If you're a racist, you're racist. And that's all.
Yeah. No buts.
No buts. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate all your time. I know it was a longer episode, but I think it was important. I don't even know how long we've been talking, but I don't care.
I don't either.
I don't know, but I
7
think it's important to listen to the whole thing. So stick
Well,
with it.
it's 12:02, so.
It's 9:02, Miss Ashley.
Shout out to
Sorry,
DC
sir.
for getting up at 7 o'clock on a
Yes.
Saturday morning.
I had three
Yikes.
alarms. I had 3 alarms going. I didn't go to bed till like 3 in the morning.
Oh no.
Oh, ay Dios mío.
It's
I woke
it was,
up
but
at
it
3
was,
a.m.
yeah, but it was good because I had a really good conversation with my nephew actually about this, and I told him about.
How is
good.
my nephew?
morning.
I mean, your nephew.
He's good. He's doing really well. He's, we just had a conversation about how he felt about this, and I told him that I was going to be on the podcast. Thought it was cool, and I kind of wanted to kind of just have someone to kind of talk it through, so I know what I would say this morning. And he had a lot of really great opinions. He's young. He's 24 years old, and he grew up differently than myself and Ramon. There's he's had his own specific type of privileges, as a young Black man, to not have to really be affected by some of these things. But that was my opinion. After speaking with him last night, I realized like it doesn't matter how you grew up or where you grew up or, not having to, go through certain circumstances. He definitely gets it. And I'm happy that I found that out about him. So he's doing well, to answer your question.
Good.
Shout out to Ramon II. All right.
I was biting my tongue.
I know.
We'll talk offline. All right. Thank you guys, because that could be a whole other podcast too. Until next week, and you listen to us talk about forgiveness.
Yes, keep the conversation going at home, at work, with people that you meet.
Yeah,
Keep bringing up everything that's going on.
Last thing, there's a tons that you can do. Ashlyn has already been posting about the things that you can do to support, and I'm sure she will continue to post those things. There's a link in the bio at link whatchamacallit. You just have to add it to Facebook too.
Oh yes.
All right, peace.
Bye.
Later.